honesty, I was thinking about Crazy Taxi today, and I was like, okay, Mayra, why are you thinking about this game that you haven't played in a really long amount of time? And then I realized I'm spiraling again. Crazy Taxi is a game that I played a lot as a child. I feel like I say that about a lot of video games, and I feel like I said exactly the same thing about Club Penguin. Seriously though, it's like one of the earliest games that I played. I played it so long ago that I don't even remember like which console it was on. That's how old this experience was. Continued loving games like this, which are incredibly fast-paced for my pea little brain and task you with completing tasks in a time limit, because I am obsessed with a concept called time management, because I'm actually like a workaholic. I love Diner Dash 2, but also like I didn't love it as much as Crazy Taxi because it had like a kind of bleak vibe to it, and that is too realistic for me. That just feels too much like a service industry job. It has to have a separation, please. Starting off in the 90s in arcades,
Crazy Taxi
originally was developed by Hitmaker, development company that was part of Sega. It was super bombastic and very 90s. It had so much style and flair with its 90s rock soundtrack, punk characters, sleazy vibe, and this feeling of almost like cartoonish edge. It had a lot of spunk, which is a word I've never said out loud before. It was so successful that it got released on like a bajillion consoles, but that does not mean they were successful on all of them, and it does not mean that they were great on all of them. It kind of started losing steam after Crazy Taxi 2 and Crazy Taxi 3, especially when they started to remove the soundtrack and make it look like Subway Surfers in 2013/2014. The later renditions of the original on PS2, for example, like Crazy Taxi 2, 3, expanded the game, but also not by much, not enough so that like more than 20 years later, you know, it still is like a cult classic, you know what I mean? It still survived almost 10 years plus as a very successful game, and that says something about the balance of the actual gameplay itself, which they so smartly, financially smartly patented. They took action against the Simpsons game that had a very, very similar type gameplay style, and you know what? I stand behind them with this one. You can have your opinions about that one. We aren't just gonna recount a quick Timbit-sized history lesson about this game that I'm sure that a lot of you have never thought about, to the 3 viewers that are watching. I'm going to actively ruin it for you by analyzing it. So Crazy Taxi is everything I loved in a game. Iconic soundtrack, great atmosphere, and kind of fun tasks, kind of. I also loved spotting like real life brands in the game, which is really interesting considering I hate product placement. But it's like a very strategic and fun way to put product placement into your thing, because it's kind of part of the game. It's not going out of its way to showcase itself to you like an extended shot of a car driving down a street in an action movie, which certainly does not drag down the pace. Just like Club Penguin though, Crazy Taxi had something, and it, you know, it possibly unintentionally primed me for a work mindset. It didn't prime me to enjoy driving though, which I will hate till the end of time. I still don't have my license. Same with cooking, so I have the same problem with Diner Dash. See, there's a separation that you create when you're playing a video game. It's not real anymore, so therefore it's just infinitely more enjoyable. Any games with service industry jobs under a time pressure of serving the customer no matter what, no matter how much damage and anguish it causes to the environment and yourself, are implicated in this video game and in this video in general. Diner Dash, which I keep mentioning because it's the one that just comes to mind immediately, and countless other games where the customer literally like deserts you, leaves the entire establishment if you don't serve them in like less than a minute. It's like current world, except 10 times worse and dystopian, because actually everyone is a Karen and considerate of you, and you are not allowed to show any emotion, so emotional labor is like just a prerequisite. You're not supposed to feel tired. But in Crazy Taxi, you're like a cool taxi driver who's willing to do anything for the customer, almost creating like less of a distance with you and your customer, who is most certainly not following any traffic laws and not obeying any safety standards when they are in the car. I mean, we do follow by example for sure. And your task is to take this often extremely inconsiderate and rude customer to the destination of their choosing in like 1 minute or less. And to do that, you often have to commit multiple felonies, otherwise named in the game as crazy stunts, so that you can reach a matrix-like vacuum where the customer is either happy with you enough to tip you or like spits in your face or something. Now your goal is to get them on time as much as possible and do as many like cost-heavy taxi rides as possible so you can get the most money. It's almost like it's based on like real-life service industry jobs, you know? Unlike Diner Dash, Crazy Taxi feels like a little bit counterculture. So my question is it a criticism of American capitalism? Hear me out. The taxi drivers in the game are all pretty young, and all of them, except Gina, how am I surprised, you know, the only female character in the game is the least developed, have a backstory. Well, kind of. You know, they're troubled with toxic habits such as gambling, or maybe, you know, having their own side hustle, doing their own thing like DJing. Hashtag gig economy representation, the cartoonish car-related violence of the game, as well as the spunky characters and unrealistic rules of the world where you can just, you know, literally drive in a way that is not even physically possible. The punk rock music that often in itself is kind of counterculture and criticizes American capitalism, and the consistent product placement almost feel like a satire of Americana. It doesn't come off as like a meaningfully realistic representation. So is it a satire of the American dream maybe as well? This game is fun and larger than life, but it almost feels like an over-the-top representation. Like all that's left is like, you know, flags and bald eagles and stuff. Horrid work-life balance is there. The need to get as much money as possible to make ends meet is there. Skip on customers in favor of customers who will get you more money and ultimately face the boot for not being fast or productive enough for those customers. Yet almost all of that is like presented in like a comically exaggerated way. It's part of the fun, that's for sure, but like if you think about it deeply, where's this coming from, you know? Is this like actually like a criticism of American capitalism from the inside of American capitalism, or is it perhaps an outsider view? And that's where I hit the jackpot. I don't know what I hit, but I hit something when I looked online. Crazy Taxi was originally developed by a Japanese company. I literally said this in the first minute of the video, but because I don't even have an attention span that is good enough for my own words, I completely blindsided it. Great! My question /S has been answered, kind of, internally at least. Well, it explains the weird layouts of San Francisco and America for sure. A lot of productions that depict the American dream or American culture from an outside lens feel scathing, as they often criticize American hegemony and the way in which American reality often does not really line up with Americana and the American dream. Paris, Texas by Wim Wenders, I have no idea how to pronounce this name, is a great example of this. Like, you might be in awe, like, oh my god, she's using like an art house film example. The European distance from the culture allowed for like Americana to be portrayed in an almost vacant and sometimes even comically exaggerated manner, whilst also depicting like a real life American story, showing the incongruence between the two. I love productions like this because it does challenge American hegemony by its mere existence and by showcasing the flaws and incongruence between reality and representation. But of course, it has to be done tastefully. Crazy Taxi is a Japanese game, it's not American, and it's a representation of American capitalism or Americana in the 90s, and that's the game, and you know, do with that what you will. But the nostalgia people feel for it, me included, internationally, speak to its relevance on a gameplay level, perhaps also due to like a Lacanian mirroring of our very own lifestyles to this very day, whilst also showing how synthesized and over-the-top glorification of Americana, specifically 90s Americana, is. And whether intentional or not, it's my read on it. Maybe delusional, but it's my read and I will surely stand by it. And maybe I should replay the game and see how much it holds up. I think I will lose like attention in like 5 minutes. I don't know how the iPad kids are doing it these days. Something I will not support though, or that I don't like, is if they start really trying to remake the games. Unless it's gonna be like a type of retro thing where they remake a game and kind of, you know, if you want to play it, it's from the 90s, it's archival, have fun, enjoy it to relive your memories. But if you're just gonna remake it, like, let bygones be bygones, you know? I think other franchises learned that lesson, or maybe even didn't learn that lesson the hard way. I'm talking about something in the background, of course. You know what I would really love though, is like if they made like a taxi driver game. I think that would actually be very fitting to the times. I think it would sell really well. Anyways, thanks for watching. I literally just made this out of the blue, but I have thoughts about Crazy Taxi and I must share them as soon as possible. And who knows, maybe by next year I'll be able to drive. Maybe by next year there will be a Crazy Taxi game. I also keep promising to make Miraculous Ladybug videos. It's just because I'm not caught up yet, and also because it kind of sucks. So I'm trying to make a very comprehensive this thing sucks type video, but I don't know, maybe it will come out, maybe it won't. Never see the light of day. Anyways, bye.